This is a story about teachers, their threadbare lives, their struggles.
Hi, welcome to TESOL Smash. My name is Ed Asprey. Today I want to talk about watchability. 4 things to think about when making video lessons for your students. Just as in the classroom we try and make our lessons as interesting and engaging as possible, we should try and make our videos as interesting, engaging and ultimately watchable as possible, because if they're not watchable, our students don't watch them, we waste our time and effort making them, and the students don't get the information we want them to get. However, the elements that go into making a video watchable are not necessarily intuitive and certainly aren't necessarily familiar to most teachers. So in this video, I want to go over 4 aspects of watchability. To do this, I want to compare a video from the eminent educator and writer in English for academic purposes, Edward de TESOL.
Hello, I'm Edward de TESOL.
And 2 videos from successful YouTube channels, Film Riot, who make how-to videos for micro-budget filmmaking, and 60 Symbols, an educational series of videos about basic concepts in physics. Now, the content of these videos is radically different and I don't want to compare that content. However, I do want to compare the technical and stylistic aspects of these videos, which I think affect their watchability. So let's start by watching a clip from one of Edward de TESOL's videos on academic writing.
10 steps to better academic writing. I'll go through the 10 steps in turn, and for each step I have some questions. Now these questions are for us as writers, as academic writers. And by thinking about these questions and answering them, we will improve our academic writing. It will become clearer and higher quality. Step 1. Genre, audience and purpose. The genre is the what. What am I writing? Audience, who am I writing for? Purpose, why am I writing? For example, what am I writing? Is it an essay, a report, a case study, a review, a critique, a proposal, a dissertation, an abstract? Whatever it is, it has its own characteristics, features, conventions, style, organisational patterns. These are familiar to its readers and its writers, and by studying them we can more effectively produce a similar kind of text within the expected conventions. Who am I writing for? Is it my tutor? Is it an external assessor? Is it my peer, another student? Is it someone else in the field, maybe in another country? That's my audience. Purpose. What's my purpose? Is it to explain, to report, to argue, to describe, to persuade perhaps? Texts have a particular purpose, and by knowing the purpose we'll produce a more effective text.
Okay, so maybe you thought there was nothing fundamentally wrong with that video, but if you're anything like me, there will have been a few things that jumped out at you as a little bit problematic. The first thing that jumped out at me is the background and composition, with Edward smack bang in the centre against this off-white grey background. Now to me that comes across as a little bit cold, disembodied and impersonal, and it's very different from the composition of the Talking Heads parts of Film Riot and 60 Symbols. Now in these shots the background is nothing special, it's just the professor's office and Ryan's editing studio, but that slightly more familiar, warmer background, coupled with the fact that the speaker is not in the centre of screen, which for unknown artistic reasons is more appealing to the eye, makes this shot feel a little bit more friendly, a little bit warmer and a little bit more intimate. So thing number 1 is composition. Just as in the classroom we have to think about where we stand and how that makes our students feel, and what our classroom actually looks like and how that makes our students feel. In the videos we should think about where we're speaking from, how that makes our students feel, and what the video will ultimately look like and feel like for the students. The second thing that jumped out at me is the audio quality.
10 steps to better academic writing.
I can hear static noise, I can hear the reflections in the room, and I can also hear someone fidgeting and moving about behind the camera, and it's a little bit off-putting and a little bit distracting. And if you're anything like me, there are probably a number of occasions where you've switched off a YouTube video because of the poor audio quality. It sounds like the cause of this problem is the fact that Edward is using the microphone on his camera, and DSLR cameras have notoriously bad microphones, and to demonstrate this, if I change from my lav mic to the microphone on my camera, you can hear it sounds terrible, you can hear reflections, you can hear static noise. It's horrible. You probably wouldn't want to listen to this for any length of time. Now, the audio in Edward's video is not that bad, but it certainly might subconsciously affect whether I watch this video again, whether I watch any more videos like this, or indeed whether I actually get to the end of this video. So the audio quality can play a subconscious part of its watchability. So thing number 2, just as in the classroom we need to think about how clearly we speak, in videos we also need to think about how clear we sound. Another thing I noticed with Edward's video is the pace. It feels a little bit sluggish. Now, there are lots of things that might affect the perception of pace in a video, but I think one of them is visual stimulation. Now, I don't mean having lots of things happening in the visual field. I mean, how often is our visual field refreshed? To demonstrate this, let's take a look at the 60 symbols video and see how often our visual field is refreshed.
So I'm going to talk about gamma, the Lorentz factor, which we have already done a video about, but there's enough to say about it that I thought we'd do a kind of gamma reloaded video and have another go at it.
Gamma reloaded,
Yeah.
I like that. Nice.
Gamma is a factor that comes up in special relativity. It's kind of appears in a lot of the equations in special relativity, and one of the places it occurs in this thing is this thing called time dilation. You see something going past you, so something that's traveling relative to you, the clocks in that reference frame seem to be going slow relative to your reference frame, so the time, the clocks tick more slowly and everything goes more slowly. Biological processes go more slowly, radioactive decay goes more slowly, and so on. So really, time really is slowed down when something's moving relative to you. Okay, so in our last video about this, we talked about one of the proofs that this actually occurs, which is that there are these particles called muons created when high energy particles crash into the top of the atmosphere, and the muons are then detected down on the Earth. And the reason why this is a bit of a surprise is because muons don't live very long. They have very short decay times. And actually,
so in that 1 minute and 15 second clip, our visual field is refreshed 7 times, and the longest single clip, the longest single shot, is only 27 seconds long, and the shortest a mere 3 seconds long. If we compare this with Edward's eye-drying 9 minute and 45 second epic, you can see how important editing for pace can be. Now, you might think I'm being unfair on Edward, and you might say that actually the classroom is not a very visually stimulating environment. But if you think about what a student is able to look at in any given minute of a class, they could be looking at the teacher, the whiteboard, down at their notes, at their phone, at other students, out the window, at the door. So the classroom can be a surprisingly visually stimulating environment. And so to watch something for an extended period of time is both unnatural and difficult even for the motivated viewer. So thing number 3. Just as when we're preparing for a class, we think about the staging and the timings of activities in order to keep our students occupied, engaged and challenged, when making videos, we should construct the video with pace in mind. And the fact that we can edit video gives us an incredible amount of control over that pace that we don't get in the classroom. Another thing that makes the 60 Symbols and Film Riot videos different from Edward de Chassal's videos is the use of visuals. Video is by definition a visual medium, and this gives us an opportunity, an affordance, to show as well as tell. With video, we can use visual aids, visual representations, illustrations, and visual examples in a very, very creative way. To give an example, let's take a look at how Film Riot explains shutter speed.
Next is shutter speed. We have talked about this on the show before, but it's worth repeating. The shutter is the metal curtain that's in front of your sensor blocking light. Shutter speed is how fast that shutter opens and closes for each frame of video. Faster shutter speeds will give you crisp motion a la Saving Private Ryan, like this. Or if you want smoother motion, you're going to go with a slower shutter speed, which will look more like this. And to explain why this happens, Josh and Bruno will perform a slow-mo shutter reenactment. So, say this board is the shutter. We are the sensor and Josh is the image we're capturing. With a slow shutter speed like this, we actually absorb more of the moment, so we record slight movements from Josh, which is why we get motion blur. But with a fast shutter speed like this, we freeze Josh in time and get none of that extra movement, which is why we get that choppy look, because every single frame is fully sharp, so there's no smooth transition between them at all.
You might not like the style of that video, but you have to admit it's a very simple and effective way to explain what is potentially a difficult concept. And it's markedly different from Edward's video in that, although he does use a prop later on in the video, he doesn't really exploit the visual side beyond the fact that we can see him speak. So, thing 4. We know that in the classroom sometimes it's easier to explain something with a picture or to act it out. When making video, we have to think, how can we exploit the much greater freedom and creativity we have with video to show something as well as tell something in a way that's beyond what we're capable of in the classroom.
That's the difference. That's what film can do for you.
Or you for it, as it were.
It's important to say I'm not trying to criticize the content of Edward's video, nor am I trying to criticize him as an educator or as a teacher. He is doubtless a vastly superior teacher to me. And I'm not trying to say that the guys at Film Riot or at 60 Symbols know more about teaching and know more about education than he does. But when transitioning from the classroom space to the video space, I think there are a lot of mistakes that can be made by even the most knowledgeable and experienced teachers. And indeed, when making videos, I myself have made all of these mistakes and many more, and I'm probably making a lot of mistakes in this video right now. But I think if we can identify the pitfalls and the fixes to making good videos, we can be on the way to making effective and watchable video lessons for our students.
Are you kidding? Because I think it's good.
If you can think of any more things that make a video watchable or unwatchable, or if you think I'm making some terrible mistakes in this video, let us know in the comments below. Also, please subscribe to hear about our latest videos.
How'd you like it?
Oh, I didn't.
Thank you.